Work-life balance. High performers want this proven strategy instead. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com. Work-life balance? High performers want this proven strategy instead has been inspired by a conversation. Well, actually, two conversations. One conversation that I had with a client of the advisory program, as well as a chat that I was having on LinkedIn. Surprise, surprise. Places where I like to spend / invest. No, places I love to invest my time. And one of these things that just keeps coming up constantly is this whole concept of work-life balance. And I want to share a pretty painful, vulnerable story with you that hopefully is going to drive home the point, because I used to get this wrong. And I actually am finally in a point in my life where I'm completely comfortable with not only feeling this way, but sharing it here with so many of you across the globe. And I'm sure you're going to be sharing it with other people that you know. But here's the thing. So aside from these conversations and being inspired by this whole concept of work-life balance, I guess my first question for you is, have you tried to live out work-life balance? Because you're a high performer. If you have tried to work out and figured out how to actually make that happen, work-life balance, I mean, how's that worked out for you so far? Because you're a high performer. You know, I used to, for many, many years, especially during my corporate time, because this was a time when I was a high riser, continued to be a high performer, and also head of household, wanted to be able to continue to do all of the right things, live the moniker of work-life balance, so that I could say I was actually doing it, living it. And I know that there were times where I actually believed that I was. And at the same time, the reality was I just wanted to be able to be in a point where I was feeling calm inside and I was actually coherent with my actions. That's the feeling that I was having. That's really what I wanted. If you would have like pulled me into a deep dark corner and been like, hey, Billy, what's this whole work-life balance thing? And that would have been it. Like really, literally feeling calm inside and being coherent with my actions. But specifically, I told you I wanted to share something with you. I wanted to be a bit vulnerable. This whole thing of work-life balance, I remember trying to live this out in 2016. And the reason I was trying to live it out was because this was the first time in my corporate career where I had a massive responsibility, like just as me as an individual contributor, right? And I know I've talked about this in the past, like before I had managed businesses I managed a business that was about $100 million business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I then took some lateral moves. I then took a step back, some would say, to be able to jump forward and become managing director. I know I've shared that story here with you. But there came a point where I was also had an opportunity to sell in a different language, different culture, and it was an 8-figure type of opportunity. And so when I saw this on the horizon, like, you know, I mean, it was like $25 million worth of software is what we were selling, 25 million plus. And the whole thing is I knew that could have been a reality. And at the same time, as a young father and having just gone over my 40th birthday, it was like one of these things where I wanted to be able to be at all places all the time. And so as I was on that track, I started realizing soon on that it was a struggle because I really wanted to be the present dad, husband, all that kind of good stuff, and really wanted to be able to drive this massive, what I thought was massive opportunity across the finish line with a team of people that reported to me indirectly, right? So there was this challenge or opportunity to kind of prove myself at home and prove myself at the office. And so I knew that I wanted to go after that. And so I was going after that. And in the back of my mind, because I kept saying, you know what, I really want to live work-life balance. I'm going to show everybody it is possible. I'm the one who's doing it. And so that's what I pushed forward on. And so it was that became my thing, that I wanted to show how to do it. But really quickly, I understood that it was going to be really, really challenging to do so. So what did I do? Just like I normally do many, many times, and you've done before, I had to sit down and come up with a plan and figure out, okay, well, how can I be all places, everywhere, all the time? Well, guess what? Guess how that worked? Not very well. And typically where especially if you are coming from that kind of mentality where you got to prove everybody that you're the reliable one, you're the one who can always make it rain, you always have the solutions, you're normally going to show that more at the office than you are at home. Because if you are always showing that at the office, there's someone else who should be or is showing that at home, right? It's just, and it may not be your specific case, but 9 times out of 10, and 9 of the 10 people I speak to on the phone, that's usually the case. So that was my case as well. But there gets to a certain point where you realize that you can't be all over the place. You can't be everywhere all the time. We talk about omnipresence. If you're trying to be omnipresent, unless you're trying to do that online, it's very difficult. Let me say impossible to do that in person, in real life, IRL, in real life. Trust you're enjoying today's episode. Once again, when you're ready to make your 9 to 9 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com. Let's get back to the episode. So what it comes down to is actually being able to, and I'm only sharing this with you because initially I didn't do it well. And that's because I was trying to be everything to everybody. And at a certain point, what it became was a matter of sitting down and having really honest conversations with family, with friends, with the bosses at the office, because no one expects you to be a perfect person. What everyone expects is clarity. And at the end of the day, clarity involves also being able to have very clear boundaries, not only setting those boundaries, but having those boundaries respected. First, starting with you. Because if you don't respect the boundaries, nobody else is. And these are lessons that I'm constantly working on. I'm constantly redefining and making better. And I'm just going back to this point in time. But the real important conversations to have, there's two. There's one, it's with your spouse or your partner. And the other is with your direct line boss at the office, if you have that person, right? And if you're in the big corporate, which you are, you have that person. So it's really important with your partner, with your spouse, and with your boss. You've got to get the idea of having boundaries set and respected really in place. Because at the end of the day, when you're having these conversations, it's really about who does what, when, where, and how. You have to discover who does what, when, where, and how. And you have to come to an agreement on that. Not just say it, but agree it. And trust me, if you're anything like me, initially when you say it and when you have these conversations, you're going to feel really, really uncomfortable, especially when it relates to being your partner, spouse, and or boss, right? And probably not all the same, right? So it's either your spouse, partner, or your boss, but you have to have both of these conversations. And so as you're having these conversations, it's really important, once again, to make sure that you're talking about who does what, when, where, and how. These things are important because at the end of the day, if you're looking for balance, you're going to constantly be struggling. You're going to constantly be struggling. And I said that I want to share the proven strategy, and there is a very clear proven strategy at the end of the day, because anyone who's a high performer, and I went on and on and on and had this conversation. It went on for quite a while. And the conversation is, and this, I can tell you for me, like when you're in a high performing role, don't look for the strategy of work-life balance, because you're just going to be the most frustrated person in the room. And everyone that loves you and cares about you, and that includes your family and your bosses in the office, because at the end of the day, everybody cares about you. But if you're completely strung out, burnt out, then you're not any good to anybody. So here's the thing. Rather than worrying about work-life balance, how about trying this proven strategy instead? Because this is one that's actually worked much, much better for me. First of all, when you put this strategy in place, you will start to realize that your boundaries you're the person who's responsible for your boundaries, having them placed and having them aligned and having them respected. Because when you stop looking for work-life balance and you start looking for life-work harmony, life is going to get much better, not just for you, but for your team at the office and for your team at home. And what I mean by that is you have to be where your feet are. And when you are where your feet are and nowhere else, everybody benefits. Everybody. Because when you're at the office and you're crushing it, you're going all in on a major project and you're there many, many hours a day. You know what's important? The people that are back at home understand who's doing what, when, where, and how. And then guess what? When that project is done, or whatever the timeline or the deadline was, when that is done, then guess what? Your energy, effort, and attention is at home. And guess what? At the office, they're going to want to understand who's doing what, when, where, and how. It's the exact same thing. You just got to flip it on its head, because you as a high performer, you're always going to be all in on everything you do. It's just how you're wired. Ask me how I know. So that's the thing. Stop looking for work-life balance and start looking for life-work harmony. Everybody's going to appreciate it much more, starting with you. They're going to love you at the office even more. They're going to love you at home even more, because when you're there, it's quality time. Your brain's not all over the place. You're not trying to be anywhere and everything to everybody, right? Trust me. Once again, ask me how I know. So that's the thing. That's what I wanted to share with you today, because I know that these are conversations I'm having very, very frequently. Ditch the work-life balance. Like, it's just going to end you up in a very frustrated situation. Work on, and it doesn't happen overnight, work on looking for that harmony in your life and in your work. It's the thing that's going to bring happiness and harmony to everybody that is involved with you, starting with you. So listen, take today's episode, share it. I know you know other high performers. They're struggling with it. I struggled with it, and I continue to work and refine this. And that's why I'm sharing it with you here today. So while you're sharing, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be right here. Yep, right here, preparing for next episode. And so until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very, very much. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 9 to 9 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.